You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.
This is Grand Design Podcast with DJ and Jerry Grand, as we link the chains of reason of sports, politics, and culture.
Welcome to the Grand Designs Podcast, episode 11. I'm DJ Grand, and I'm joined again with my brother Jerry.
Hello.
And our engineer Ryan.
Hello.
Today I'm going to need to lay a little bit of a foundation of a philosophical foundation of our subject. We're going to be talking about participation trophies. But it doesn't just happen in a vacuum. There's a reason these trends sort of come up. I like to call them, well, people who know me anyways, know me as, they know that I'm a philosophical nerd. I get into philosophy a lot. And in my studying of the history of philosophy, I've sort of learned that it happens in waves. Philosophical trends come in waves. And that's the best metaphor I can think to describe it. It's one wave comes in, crashes on the shore, and leaves its imprint on the sand and the beach, and then it recedes. And then another wave comes along, crashes on the shore, wipes out those impressions, and leaves its own impression for then to recede again, and another to come along. And this happens in perpetuity. And if you go back to the beginning of known philosophy, or the most famous philosopher, Socrates, he actually didn't write down a single word. It was all that was written down by his students. Most notably is Plato. And Plato was his student, Socrates' student, or his disciple. And then Plato turned and had a student. And his most famous student was Aristotle. So what Plato and Socrates thought was right, Aristotle totally rejected. So Plato was the first wave, and then Aristotle comes along with the second wave, basically rejecting almost everything that Socrates and Plato said. This went along for a while, and reason went underground during the Mid Ages, those Dark Ages. But Aristotelian thought was kept alive by a few Arabic philosophers until it was really brought back up into light by St. Thomas Aquinas. And when he brought it back, it ushered in the Renaissance and then the Age of Enlightenment. But at that time came the modern era of philosophy, and it was that was the beginning of the rejection of the Aristotelian thought. Philosophers such as Hegel and Immanuel Kant, and later Karl Marx, totally rejected Aristotle. So there was another wave come along, wiping out Aristotle. So how does this all evolve into participation trophies? Well, we need to also do a little bit of background on current modern history. A little personal history. My grandfather was born in 1900, and he, before he got to be 14 years old, he experienced the First World War. And in 1917, when the First World War ended, he emigrated into this country. But at that same time, you got the rise of communism in what would be Soviet Russia. And then shortly thereafter was the Great Depression. After the Great Depression comes the rise of fascism in Nazism in Germany and fascism in Italy, which then led to World War II. Now, if we think about it, the people who lived during my grandfather's time lived in a very special time, and it created a certain ethos, a certain culture. And that culture was tough, authoritarian, winner take it all. You had to live by the rules. So that sort of influenced that culture, and then how they raised their kids. Another good example of modern times, if we think about it, the 1950s was a very strict Christian, almost authoritarian era. And if you think about the television shows, like Leave It to Beaver, or when The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, everything was all problems were solved in a half an hour in a neat package. And even the parents, the mother or the husband and wife, weren't even allowed to sleep in the same bedroom. And this philosophical wave caused what would the late 60s caused the sexual revolution. That was a rejection of the 1950s. So one wave again wiping out another wave. Well, my father was raised by that tough authoritarian ethos, and that's how he raised me. That's how he raised our generation. And then Generation X comes along and rejects that totally. It's more of a kinder, gentle parenting. It's also led to helicopter parenting and a couple other things, but that rejection brought about the participation trophy culture. Now, instead of winner take it all, instead of it's the hard, cold reality of you may lose, now you get rewarded for just showing up. Now, I've done my little introduction. What do you think about the participation trophies?
Well, obviously being raised by the same father, yes, it was strict, and you didn't get a trophy for second place. And as a matter of fact, we won a couple runner-up trophies for playing hockey. Did it matter? Did we even keep them? So just to get a trophy for showing up, no. But in today's culture, you are correct. They're trying to teach the kids that if they just show up and give them a trophy for their effort, it'll motivate them more to play, participate, get more into it. And it says it gives them better grades. Because they're actually rejecting what we just said, that because our coaches always told us, this is life, guys. You know, when you lose all these close games like Duke last night with Michigan State, that's life. Doesn't always go your way. They're saying the exact opposite.
Well, according to the participation trophy, Duke should be rewarded for losing.
Well, yes, correct. Just for coming out there and playing, for their effort. It's not about winning or losing; it's effort. And they are saying it's in small children. 5-year-olds. That's what they should. And they don't get into when it should stop. But they're just saying it's for the young children to develop their minds and their discipline and getting good grades. And they use the grades all the time. They keep on saying that.
Well, I think it's a rejection of discipline, because you need to be disciplined in order to accept losing. I think it's an absolute rejection of disciplinarian methods. But I'm glad you brought up second place trophies, because I think that was the bud of what they brought in the participation trophies, the consolation prizes,
the silver and bronze medal.
Not so much that, just you get a consolation prize for not winning, and that was the very beginning, I think, of the participation trophy, because then you would get a prize for not winning, but at least second or third did get a prize and the rest didn't. Now everybody gets a prize.
Then it went to fourth place. You get a ribbon or what have you.
There's my point.
Yeah, it extended. Correct. But again, it goes back to where now James Harrison, you know who he is?
Yeah, a Pittsburgh Steelers linebacker.
Tough guy, awesome football player, won a couple Super Bowls, played, I think, 12 seasons. I think it's fourth grade. His two sons played in the league. They came in fourth place, and they got a trophy. He made them give them back. You're not going to be rewarded for losing. Flat out, the quote was, your trophy shelves will stay bare until you come back with a victory. Now, they're literally making fun of James Harrison in this article for that parenting skill. Now, this guy actually brings up and goes a little bit personal with Harrison about him with domestic violence. That has nothing to do with the topic. It's just this guy trying to, I think, divert the situation. That Harrison's right. He's bringing his kids up correct, that, you're rewarded for winning, whether it be division, MVP, the top player, the top team. Well,
Harrison did that. I think he posted on Instagram, and Kurt Warner, who is a former NFL Super Bowl champ, agreed with him. He posted that, don't know where you stand, but I am fully with Harrison 9292 on the participation trophy. They don't let kids pass classes for just showing up. So it's not just Harrison, it's other NFL players that agree with him.
Well, this article here is basically, now he's also using Harrison that he played 12 years and only won 2 Super Bowls. So 10 years he had a losing season, yet did not give his money back for those 10 seasons when he did not win.
That presupposes or assumes he's getting paid to win. He's not getting paid to win. He's getting paid to play football. Never ever does a contract say you must win. It says you come out when you play football. So that assumes something that's not really there.
Context here. Apparently, he saw nothing wrong with collecting his reward for failure during that decade of football without a championship.
Once again, he wasn't rewarded for failure. He was paid, if you want to call it rewarded, for playing the game. No one, you can't expect to win. You can't be paid to win. Because you know what? If you got paid to win, everyone on the Detroit Lions would be broke. They would never be getting paid.
Like, again, yes, but that where it goes back to just participating. Think about the actual salaries. How much effort would they give if everyone in the NFL or in these professional leagues got a trophy just for coming out that they wouldn't give an effort?
No, they wouldn't. And I think it reinforces a bad example because it basically says you don't have to get an effort to achieve anything in life. It's automatically going to be there for you.
Well, things have also changed when it comes to when you go to these youth games, especially hockey, more than hockey and football. These parents, they take it seriously, more seriously.
I think baseball too, but
than the kids, to where they're actually getting in brawls and fights over missed calls. I've literally heard one person say, he texted the coach after a game, "I'm not driving my kid 25 miles to play 3 minutes." That was a 3-minute in a whole hockey game. I guess the kid got benched. So that was his way of telling the coach, "I'm not bringing my son if he's not going to play." So the parents take it to where they think they know better, and they actually, again, going a participation trophy, that just because they show up, they have to play.
Well, I question then, who is the child playing for? Is he paying for the
travel team?
Is the parent? No, that's not what I meant. Is the parent vicariously living through the child, or is the child playing for himself because he wants to play? Because if they only care about whether they win or lose or not, whether they play or not, then I think it's the parent that is vicariously living through the child. If the child wants to play and wants to participate, even if it is for only 3 minutes, let them participate for 3 minutes.
So is that what the parents are trying to get that trophy through their children?
Well, I think the whole participation trophy notion is for the parents. It's not for the kids. It's to make the parents feel good.
Well, again, but haven't we raised this generation of children to, what's what I'm looking for, expect entitlement, that they're entitled to something for their effort?
I think that is the problem with participation trophies. It leaves a sense of entitlement that they are entitled to something when they don't earn it. No offense, but look at the millennials today. They come into the workforce thinking they should be the CEO immediately. They should get a promotion every single year. That's automatically given to them. That is what is the result, the cause, so the effect of the cause of participation trophy.
Or a direct product of?
Or cause and effect, correct.
Well, how would you describe, what is a participation trophy then, if you were to?
You get rewarded. It doesn't necessarily be a trophy. It could be just a ribbon, but you get rewarded just for showing up. And the problem with that is the child that works hard, that wants to play, plays hard, does his best to improve, is equivalent to the child that's out in right field picking clovers or looking up at the sky, not paying attention to the game whatsoever.
Not willing to work harder to get better.
Not caring. One cares and one doesn't, and they both get rewarded equally.
So, and that's where the kids that actually work and they get a little upset, and there's where the tension comes in, and they start to resent those players, the kids in right field, the ones that always get picked last, because they're actually getting the same reward for their effort. Those guys are out there busting their butts, showing up to practice early, leaving late, and they're getting the same thing as the kid who doesn't even care. So why should they show up?
Why should you work harder?
Yeah.
And that goes also into the workforce. Why should you work harder? Because someone else is going to get rewarded for work that they didn't do.
But at the end of the day, why is it bad to have a participation trophy?
Well, I think I just said it. It's because it leaves a sense of entitlement. It leaves the child thinking that they're going to be awarded regardless of effort.
But at a young, we're talking 5 years old, when they first start playing this sport, should we be worried about their feelings and reward them for their effort and not really about winning and losing? We're talking at a young age when they first start playing the game.
Feelings. It always sucks to lose. So,
exactly.
So therefore, what you're basically saying is don't play the game, don't compete, because you can't win every single time. You're going to lose sometime in your life, and it's going to suck. You need to deal with it. That's basically what you're saying is don't, and then I'm against this too, not keeping score. And that's what it leads to. You don't keep score because there are no winners or losers there, so no feelings are hurt. When that's not reality. Reality is as soon as those kids grow up, and I don't care if you say 10 years old or even into the workforce, their feelings are going to get hurt.
At some point.
And they would be better prepared for it if their feelings had gotten hurt earlier and they will learn to deal with it than to have it happen to them when they're young adults and then they get totally psychologically messed up.
Well, I think too with like when it becomes like an object, like let's say it is a participation trophy, like a physical thing. Because, yeah, if you lose, you can still like give some positive reinforcement to do better next time, or just be like, just keep at it. But it's like once there's an object involved where, that winning team or winning whatever gets something, but then everybody gets it, it kind of just
diminishes it.
Yeah.
Dilutes it.
So,
yeah. It dilutes it to where it's not really worth the same thing to where when one team got it. Because the other ones that didn't get it, I mean, Duke last night, they're hurting. You see in their eyes, they lost something. They wouldn't feel that way if everybody that trophy, that tournament got a trophy.
I agree. I would be hurt too. When I lost, especially big games like that last night, it did hurt. It stung. Yeah. But you get over it. You learn from that. Yeah.
No, I agree. But I guess whatever wave that you're talking about now, it isn't about earning it. It's about their feelings.
That's a kinder, gentle parenting.
They don't want to hurt their feelings. They want them to be rewarded just for the effort, to where it motivates them just to get up and go to the sport. And again, I'm going back to what I first said when I opened it up. They're saying they have studies that their grades improve when they're just literally given a rewarded for just showing up this was a soccer league where this was done. It was a 5-year-old soccer league. That's why I bring up early childhood development.
Well, let's move that then in the academic field. If you didn't get an A, B, C, D, or any grade whatsoever, would that make them work harder? Everyone gets a passing grade no matter what. Would they try? Because that is equivalent to a participation trophy.
No.
You just show up and you get the grade. So what incentive is there? If you do it equally, like you do in the participation trophy to academia, you would lead a generation of failures because no one would care anymore. There'd be no reason to try harder anymore.
I think it's also going to parenting. Our parents were hard on us to where now we kind of protect our children. We kind of do things for them. We don't want them to where our parents get out there. You got to learn. It's a cold, hard world out there. Get out, go. To where now it's, we're coddling, protecting them.
Generation X's, which incidentally is a stupid name. It's supposed to be lack of identity, but we're identifying that very generation now. So it's a very stupid name, but that's beside the point. The problem is with the Generation Xers, that parenting, they once again are rejecting the previous philosophical wave of parenting, and they're bringing in, they're rejecting everything about the authoritarian type, winner take all, right or wrong philosophy. And they're totally going the exact opposite. And you can always bring it down to a Rush song. Time after time, we lose sight of the way. Our causes can't see their effects. And that's exactly what's happening. They're trying to do it to be nice. And the effect is it's hurting their kids.
Well, I can tell you now in the workforce, just from what I deal with, having to work with some of the people, there is an entitlement now to where, and we have a couple to where there are some mothers, daughters, aunts, nieces that are working there, and they are very protective, of their siblings, whatever, nieces, they didn't break the rules, want to step and argue for them, to where it's not them going out there and earning it on their own. They almost want to do their work for them. Is that a result of, being rewarded just for showing up?
It's coddling is what it is.
But
it's a result of coddling.
Isn't coddling kind of the participation trophies?
It is. When you do your MMA style fighting, would you want to be rewarded if you lost?
No, because you just not go anywhere. It's that's kind of why I like that sport. It's with any sport, but it's just it's just an easy thing to understand of winning and losing. There obviously are decisions and stuff that be kind of, controversial. Yeah. But it's still, there's two people, one's going to be better than the other. And that's how it comes down. So it's if you can't wrap your head around that and figure out what you did wrong, or if you won, it's just kind of as simple as it gets.
There's a lesson even into winning because, at least from my point of view, because you still, even when you win, you've made mistakes.
Yeah.
And you should learn from those mistakes and to be even better. So there's a lesson also to winning, but losing, it's even a better lesson because you don't really grow unless you make mistakes.
Well, it never feels good to lose and stuff with anything, but it's I kind of put this with games and stuff, but it's like playing on God mode. You'll get bored of it so soon. So if you're competing with teams that just suck, or if you're just going to steamroll them every time, you just get burnt out from whatever game you're playing.
It's no longer fun. It's no longer interesting.
Yeah. So
I totally agree with you. Totally agree. And that's what participation trophies cause.
That could do that to them.
If you went back and over the NFL from the championships, I'm just including Super Bowls. How many times did the team go and lose the first time, and then go back a second time and then win?
because they learned a lesson from their mistakes and got better.
They got upset because they lost. It hurt, stung.
And that losing was motivation to get better.
And then, yes, they came back and they were madder than ever and concentrated, focused, and won. In the repeating year, what happens? Get a little less focused. The guy you beat last year is not coming back.
That's why it's always hard to repeat, because you lose your focus and you get a little bit of big headed and think you're everything. And next thing you know, the next team comes along and takes you over.
But I finally found this, a part of this article here that was bringing in early on how it affects them in their later years going to college. Emphasizing participation over results early on will bring far more kids into the game, which is true. And what's more important about that, studies overwhelmingly show that participation in sports is linked to better grades, lower dropout rates, particularly among girls, and increased desire to attend college. But if they don't participate when they're young, they're less likely to participate when they're older.
You don't need a participation trophy to get someone to participate. You could still participate. We did it when we were younger.
I get it. I agree.
That runs on a bogus premise.
And they're using the science of a study. Again, it started in younger, 5-year-old soccer. You know, how they have better grades. And again, I just read it. I don't agree with it, but it's almost to where the psychobabble, to where it's coddling the kids.
Okay, I have something from about early education. This is from Education News in January 2013. It's entitled, How the Participation Trophy Culture Has Softened Our Kids. Today's students, from kindergartners to high school seniors, are losing out as physical education component of their education is being worked on in the labs of political correctness. What is happening, or rather not happening, can be seen in school gymnasiums and on school playgrounds across America. The prevailing trend is that PC classes and recesses are becoming less about students' need for physical activity and more about the educational elite's top-down pursuit of fairness agenda and a heightened call for social responsibility. For example, not long ago, dodgeball was the schoolyard bully, sent into permanent timeout by several states in 2001. The most iconic of all-time school activities was deemed by many experts as cruel, dangerous, counterproductive. They said the game destroyed self-esteem and created an unfair hierarchy on the playground, which trickled into the halls and loomed over the classrooms. The spin continued as they asked, what are the physical benefits when a less skilled and less athletic of the lot are always eliminated first and, as a result, forced to sit idly on the sidelines? Among the experts and their like-minded peers, nurture was and not nature was and is still central to their philosophy. It is clear no one wants to see a child get injured by the hand of a fellow classmate, but for most children, attempting to avoid a large red ball hurling at them should be instinctive. Moreover, the game is simple, and the endless attempt to manipulate the rules so as to promote equal results cannot always protect a child from a negative experience or guarantee a fun time. In fact, what many of these experts fail to accept is that their inability to control outcomes reveals their frustration with the basic human nature, because metaphorically speaking, in dodgeball and in life, getting hit is inevitable. The ball stings and the experience is painful. You may be out of the game for a bit, but the next round, there lies opportunity. And that's the point. Losing can help you to learn a lesson to win.
So they're saying dodgeball was to be eliminated because it was.
This actually happened in 2001. They started, a lot of schools in states around the country started outlawing dodgeball.
I did not know that.
And there's still a thing, it goes on today, where you are not allowed to play dodgeball.
Because it affects their self-esteem because they get knocked out first.
Well, it's like the most basic sport of, like, you get hit, like, you're out, you know?
It's true. And it's, to me, growing up, it was one of the easiest to play.
That was one of the funnest to play too. You got out of the way.
Yeah.
And if you got hit, you got mad. The next game, like it said, you went out and you learned that you run this time, or you catch the ball.
Once again, it wasn't the kids that caused this. It was the Generation X parents who said, oh, that touchy feeling, that doesn't feel good, or it's not good to knock someone out.
So was it them who got knocked out?
So I think it's kind of results of. And when we were in childhood recess out in lunchtime, and you would pick teams, and someone always got picked last. That just happens because They were trying to feel good for those kids that got picked last.
You could have but
those kids still played. Even though you got picked last, you were still picked. You still got on the team. And I'm talking about recess now. You still played.
And during recess, you'd have the class misfits tack the star running back on blacktop.
Yeah. So the point is, yeah, someone's going to get picked last. Someone is going to fail. But you still get to participate. You still don't need to be forced to have a trophy to participate. And it takes the fun out of the game, especially when we're talking about dodgeball. I mean, that's a fun game. And then now all physical activity is bad because you might lose. Yeah. What's the point of PE then?
Yeah, that's true. And you want to have like rivals and stuff, because that's like, if you take even football and, sports now, like everyone wants to watch the teams that, compete the best with each other,
Well, that's the heart of competition, the
exactly.
rivals. Yeah,
both of you brought up the operative word, compete and competition. What Participant Trophy does is try to erase competition.
Yeah.
We have no score and no winners. There's no competition. Everyone thinks competition, or not everyone, a lot of people think competition is the enemy. And in fact metaphorically speaking, if you're in a race and you're running and it's just you and someone else, and they're 10 feet behind you. Are you going to run as hard as when they're right next to you and you got to push to get to the finish line first? Which of those two scenarios are you going to be a better competitor when you have another competitor with you next to you just as good as you?
When they're on your heels.
When you're competing. The point is, competition makes us better. It doesn't hurt us. It doesn't make us worse. Yes, you're going to lose. That is inevitable. That is life. But it makes us better.
Yeah, I also think it makes the kids hard to prepare for those moments in life when they get smacked down. I mean, it's hard to accept that, someone said no, they lost finally, or they weren't rewarded for their efforts just to try. They showed up today for work, so they should get something else.
When we were kids and played baseball, when were we rewarded to go to the Dairy Queen? Was it when we lost or when we won?
Only victory.
Only when we won.
Yeah.
And that was an incentive. Even though it wasn't a trophy, that meant something. So we had to win to do it. And even though we missed out on that ice cream at the end of the day, we didn't become worse people because of it. We tried better the next time to get that ice cream and win.
So I think sometimes the coaches want us to lose because of their pocketbooks.
That's a different issue, but I would agree. But the point is, that was, in a way, that ice cream was a trophy.
Absolutely. It was a reward for winning the game. And it was even better if you won the whole season, districts, playoffs. It was even more pizza parties afterwards.
So you talk about the coach's pocketbook. Today's world would be you get an ice cream no matter what. So that coach is going to be paying for an ice cream everybody every single game. So there's nothing left in his pocketbook according to today's world.
It didn't follow his game plan.
Yes.
So I guess the only way it's going to be that next wave they come and reject it, because you can overcome the entitlement. That's going to be a tough call. But participation trophies are growing in momentum. It's not going away.
No, I think that rejection's already happened. You brought up James Harrison, and I brought up Kurt Warner. I think it's already happening. You and I reject it. I assume Ryan rejects it. I think it's happening. The problem is, this is philosophical. It's political correctness. I said it before. When you are politically correct, you're taking the fourth level of philosophy and moving it up to the number one level. And in order to be politically correct, that becomes primary. And there is the problem. I would rather be philosophically correct than politically correct. You need to think in terms of what is derived from another. Politics is not the end all be all. In fact, it's derived from your ethics. Good and what's right and wrong determines what is political. And all that matters to them is the politics, number one.
The whole PC movement is just that, feelings, not being so blunt to one person.
I blame it sort of on George H.W. Bush. Remember when he said we're going to be a kinder, gentler nation?
Oh, yeah.
That was and they took that cue and they ran with it, because that's what this is, a kinder, gentler parenting. So we don't want to spank our kids now. And you probably even get punished. Remember, we got spanked.
Yeah, correction.
Today, you spank your child, you're gonna go to jail.
Lose your kid,
Even worse.
Take them away, yeah.
Yeah, so
social services shows up. Yep.
See, this is all the philosophical wave that needs to be rejected.
Have you seen the documentary Trophy Kids? I think that's what it's called.
Was that the HBO one?
Nah.
If it wasn't, then no, I haven't seen it.
It's Mark Bell, I think he's the guy that did it, and he's done like a few, and it's kind of like what we're talking about here, but more or less just like, I think maybe this is why it's come to this, because they kind of focus on a few families, and it's like these kids that are playing these sports and their parents are just super strict on them, like they got to train all these, and they're like not even teenagers yet. And it's just like this documentary kind of focusing on like, is this right? Is this wrong? Like, and I think this might have kind of stemmed from stuff.
I might have
that,
seen something like that where you're talking that they're literally putting these kids through these academies for baseball at 7, 6, start out 6, 7 years old.
They're training just like all day.
Yeah,
like they're just being groomed, obviously.
That's what it is, being groomed for the college recruitment.
It's just nuts.
Yeah, the football kids are even going to these Harbaugh and Nick Saban at 10 years old.
Yeah, it's like crazy. It's
ostensibly, I think it could be for college or to groom them for college or the NFL, but I really think it's the parents living vicariously through their kids.
That's
want
kind of the
that.
underlying thing. And it's like, whenever the kid does something wrong, and it's like showing like kind of I guess both sides of that, where it's just like if they do bad, like
their parents are super strict on them.
Yeah.
I mean, failure isn't an option, and then they get punished to the core.
Now we're talking the exact opposite of the parody that I was talking about.
But this is where I'm just saying, I think people that are like, this shouldn't be how it is, because I'm not going to stress on my kid like that.
It's too hard. Yes, because that was the opposite thing, was that there was no feelings. It was all about results, and they were more punished than they were rewarded, because it was hard. Because he had a young age. I think there was a figure skater that was in there. There was a young football player. And these, again, both of them had skills above any other kids. But once they were recognized that, the parents took them and just started grooming them, because like what you said, they wanted their kids to those big scholarships, but the big payday in the sports, so they could be taken care of. So dad can quit I don't know how many times I think I heard that in one of those things about, I want to retire.
Yeah.
And I think I heard that. You are my retirement. So that one kid was a football player.
Yeah.
Well, again, it was living through the kid. That's what it was.
Well, we've talked about the two extremes. Of those two extremes, honestly, I'd rather have the most disciplinarian. I wouldn't say that I would do that. And I would
that is what we're just talking about is beyond it, but it's like,
it made them better.
Yeah.
Because these kids did come up and they had skill, and they were good when they were done.
If you transfer that over into academia, like we were talking earlier, a while back there was what called Tiger Mom, who would really force her kid to do good in school, play piano hours on time. And it made her really good. It made her excel in academia. It worked. I'm not saying, once again, it's an extreme and I would do that, but it worked. It got her to be a better student. So, I mean, we're talking two extremes here.
Correct.
Of the two, I would go with the more disciplinarian one.
Well, they're going to be better off, because they'll attain a skill to where the exact opposite, these participation trophies, they're just being rewarded for showing up. They don't have to do anything. To where the other, what we're talking about, those kids had to work.
Yeah.
I mean,
my question
hard.
is then, when those kids grow up, are they going to reject that philosophy and then turn the lightness
I think that's
on
what
their
they were
kids?
kind of talking about too, and they obviously can't talk to them till then. But it's like, is this going to be good for them? It could be, and it, maybe it can't.
That's that philosophical wave I'm talking about. I know that when those kids grow up, I bet you they're going to ride a wave that's going to crash the shore and say, no, we're going to wipe out everything my parents did and do it totally different. I don't want to be treated that way.
There'll be some that'll say, it worked for me. My dad did this to me. I'll do it to you. Then there'll be others to where I'm not going to do that to my kid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and to have like the option, because I think what they focus on in that movie a lot too is like some of the kids didn't even want to be doing this, and it's like they had and that's like a whole other.
If you're forcing your kid and they don't want to, they're not into it, then I'm not for that.
They
kind
won't
of
succeed, and they didn't.
If they're into it, then I can understand it, at least to the extent that the end being that they're going to get going for the scholarship or the collegiate scholarship or the NFL. But if they're not into it and you're forcing them, then I know it's the parents doing it for themselves. They're not doing it for the kid.
I think I remember a couple, it was baseball, where the kid, he had the skill, but he just didn't want to play baseball. Mm-hmm. But the parents were, I think one of the coaches told him he could be the next Mike Trout, the 5-star athlete in baseball, which is rare. The kid just didn't like baseball, and yet they just made him go. And again, his skill alone was getting him through, but he hated it. Yeah. Just hated it.
Part of succeeding is passion. And if that child did not like baseball, there's no passion there.
He won't succeed.
He may win a game or two, but he won't further his career on it. All of it will be a waste of effort because no passion, he'll end up quitting.
Well, he'll walk away and just disgust. I mean, how many times have we seen that in hockey where kids are just great and they just said, hey, I'm sick. My dad's all over me. I'm done. They walked away from it, and they were just had skill that you and I wanted to have and couldn't figure out. Why wouldn't you play? They just hated it that much because of how they were pushed into it, forced, to score that winning goal.
This is, I guess, the topic isn't necessarily participation trophies. It's bad parenting.
Yeah,
which kind of leads to where you go into the participation trophy because you don't want to be that bad parent. You want to reward the kid just for trying.
And there's that too, because if these people are up and coming athletes, if they had participation trophies, if that was like what was implemented when they were perfecting their skills, it's like, would that have further them to become have this become a career and stuff like that? Maybe they would just have plateaued, and not
Exactly.
try to push themselves.
Correct.
So
how about
like the balance?
Did you get any participation trophies growing up?
I might have in some way, but it wasn't really like.
Well, then the way you say might have in some way, that tells me you didn't hang on to them, you didn't care about them that much.
Yeah.
See, I only won in baseball growing up one championship, and I cherished that trophy because we won. It wasn't just like you just said, it doesn't matter, just thrown away. So I'm wondering if those participation trophies even really mean something. How many of those kids actually kept them and actually cared about them? Because I think the kids aren't stupid. They know they got it for doing nothing. So it's not going to mean as much to them.
I think the younger kids, the 5-year-olds, they, liked it.
Well, they liked it then, but I'm talking about later.
Later in life, it was just.
It doesn't even matter. Like
threw it away.
Ryan was saying. It's just,
Yeah. Well, and like I did like martial arts stuff, and like the thing that I felt different, that it's more or less how you might want to look at it, is just like I was proud even if I didn't get the gold, but if I got even some, like I was happy for it. Yeah, like obviously I wanted the top one, but it's like, you obviously just kind of have to look at what you did wrong and do better, and it's just like doing it was fun. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I think that's just what.
That's the key.
That's what you got to be like teaching kids and stuff like that. Cause, it didn't deter me to be like, oh, you screw this, I'm not doing this anymore. It's, try to get it next time, So
Work harder, yeah.
It's achievement. I mean, you talk about martial arts. When I did martial arts, I was more of an adult when I did it, but still it was going through all the incremental belt colors.
Yeah.
I felt like I achieved every single time I got one. I was getting better and better. It wasn't necessarily the trophy of the belt. It was the achievement of it that I was learning. I was becoming better able to defend myself.
And you'd always see other people that could do something that you couldn't, what I mean? There's
Absolutely.
always that. And it's just like, it
and you want to
gives you
strive
more
to be
drive.
there.
Yeah.
Yes,
So.
precisely.
Well, and speaking of that, how many tests that we go to where we walk up and look at black belts and say, wow, that guy's good. That guy good. He sucks. How do you get his belt? How many times do we do that?
That's participation belt.
Yeah, there is that. I've
a self-esteem kind of thing,
Yeah.
'Cause we heard that before.
Oh, absolutely.
We're just giving the belt, for self. Even the adults. I get the kids, but even the adults, even the guy who could barely tie his, belt because he was a little bit too big.
That's not good.
And you got that black belt.
Yeah.
No, they didn't deserve it, and they shouldn't have gotten. I mean, and we're talking about justice here in philosophy. Justice means they shouldn't have received it. They should have just waited until they actually could achieve that skill, that level of skill, and then gotten.
Yeah. Well, I think until our society realizes that participation trophies are not helping, it's only going to get worse because it's leaning toward to where more and more and more to where they want to just reward you for your effort. Winning and losing doesn't matter, and that's a quote.
And that's sad.
It is very sad.
And I think that's what's going to hurt, is because the kids aren't going to. You win and lose. Win and losing is about life.
Well, just go
and
back.
You're going to lose a lot more than you win.
World War I and World War II. Did it count? Did it matter?
Yes, and that's why I brought the whole thing up about my grandpa, is that think about their ethos, that what was in their culture. I mean, going through the Great Depression, World War I, World War II, they had to be men. They had to win, or you died. It was a matter of survival, and that was a part of their time.
Correct. And
now we don't have those wars. We don't have those hard times.
People will say that was their culture. It was a different time. Not this time. It's different. We're more modern to where back in World War I, there wasn't technology advanced.
I think we've been coddled and lazy. I really think the next generation.
As we advance, we have. Absolutely.
Ask yourself this. The millennials today, if they got thrown into World War II, would they be able to have stepped up like those guys did back in? Would they be able to win that war? Based on the the helicopter parenting and the participation trophies, I don't think the effort would be there.
No,
Yeah, it wouldn't look good.
they're going to want
No, I think we would lose.
they're going to want their video controllers or their cell phones. They're not even thinking about defending the country.
The point is, it had to happen, and they were products of their time. And now these kids are products of their parents, products of their parents' time, because they're rejecting that authoritarian type.
I believe being set up for failure, but that's just me.
I totally agree.
I agree too. Do I get a trophy?
Yes, if you want one. So I guess if we're going to end this thing, we'll talk about the philosophical waves. The last question I'll leave is, when is the next philosophical wave going to bring me closer to everyone else in this world? Because right now, I think I am
Getting farther apart.
leagues apart from everyone else. Anyways, you're listening to the Grand Design Podcast. You can get in touch with us at granddesigns.podcast.com. Our email is granddesigns.podcast@yahoo. Instagram is at Grand Designs Podcast, and follow us on Twitter at Grand Designs Pod. The Grand Design Podcast. Who are you listening to?